given him the ultimatum. Her or the company. Psychologically battered by what he had just gone through, he chose neither. Instead, he quit the CIA and his wife and went to ground in Switzerland until, a couple of years later, the company came looking for him with a new assignment, a thing that had to be done extrajudicially. The CIA had to be held blameless if the operation went bad. At all costs, Washington had to be kept completely out of the mix. The only fall guy would be McGarvey. And at the time, he had become so irascible in his self-imposed isolation that he had practically jumped at the chance. So it had begun. One impossible assignment after another, stretching back more years than he wanted to remember. Now at 50, he wanted to step off the merry-go-round at last. He'd endured too many losses over the years. Every woman he'd ever loved, including his first wife and their daughter, had been killed because of who he was. Friends dead, isolation in long stretches, a kidney lost, bullet wounds, skin grafts on his back from a car bomb meant to kill him that had taken his left leg from below the knee. Yet he was still in superb physical condition, some of it because of the luck of the genetic draw, but in a large measure because he willed it. He ran and swam nearly every day. Several times a year, he spent a few days to a week at the company's training facility, the farm, south of Washington along the York River, where he pushed himself to the limits. And never did he let himself merely laze away a weekend, not even a day. Sometimes you're like a monk in a monastery, more than one woman had told him. Ease up a little. His stock answer had always been, I don't know how. The real answer was that his life had very often depended upon keeping sharp. And now there was Pete, and he was just as afraid for her safety as he had been for the other women in his life. Although she was herself a highly trained and very capable field officer who had more than once fought at his side and had even saved his life. They had become partners in every sense of the word, able to read each other, able to sense each other's moods, anticipate each other's moves. They'd brought only carry-on bags with them, so they had no need to wait for the luggage carousel. Outside, they got into the taxi queue. Pete was going directly to Otto's McLean house, where Mary Sullivan was waiting for her, and Mac was going to their Georgetown apartment. It was Thursday, and Otto and Mary were getting married in a civil ceremony at the house tomorrow morning, with only Mac and Pete and Mac's 3-year-old granddaughter, Audrey, who had been adopted by Otto and his late wife, Louise, after Mac's daughter and her husband, both CIA employees, had been assassinated. Memories, Pete said. Sometimes I think that's all we'll ever be left with. All anyone's ever left with, McGarvey said a little too sharply. He'd been feeling on edge for the past couple of days, even a little morose at times. Yet he couldn't believe that it was because his only true friend in the world had fallen in love and was getting married so soon after his wife's murder. Pete looked up in surprise. Nothing stays the same, that it? I don't know. But everyone's happy. Out of old ingrained habits, Mac watched an airport cop talking to a driver who'd pulled up in a dark green Tahoe in a no-parking zone. A windowless van passed slowly, and 100 feet away across the several lanes of traffic, a man carrying a duffel bag was waiting at a crosswalk. In the farther distance was the possible glint of sunlight on a lens of what could have been a sniper scope. Pete touched his shoulder. What is it, Kirk? I don't know. She followed his gaze. Okay, you have my attention, sweetheart. Is this one of your primos? Mac's premonitions, primos, as Otto called them, were feelings almost at the subliminal level that he'd developed over the past years as a defense mechanism. Something he'd picked up in a daily report. Something he'd read in a newspaper or heard on television or online. Some disconnected bits and pieces here and there that somehow made patterns inside his head, brought his awareness almost to the preternatural level. Hunches, they were sometimes called. Feelings, inklings, notions, intuitions. Primos. He turned to her, smiled, and shook his head. Just putting myself in Otto's shoes. You sounded nervous yesterday on the phone. This is me you're talking to, Pete said. Something coming our way? Otto's darlings have been cleared.